At the very end of the tractate Moed Katan in the Talmud has a whole page of agadata, of legends, pertaining to how the great sages encountered death. In one of those stories on Chof Ches Amud Aleph, it tells how the famous Amora, Rav Ashi, the one who was the chief editor of the Talmud, was confronted by the Malach HaMavis, the angel of death. The Gemara recounts, Rav Ashi is Chazele B'Shuka. The angel of death appeared to Rav Ashi in the marketplace. Amarle, Rav Ashi said to the angel of death, Esrach li tlosin yamin. Wait another 30 days before you take me. Vahadre letalmudoi, so I can review all that I have studied. Damisu, for it says in heaven, Ashrei mi shabo lakan, v'talmudo biyato. Fortunate is the one who comes here with his learning in his hands. Wondering what the expression of v'talmudo biyado, with his learning in his hands, could possibly mean, the 11th century Rabbeinu Hananel suggests it means mastering your knowledge to a point where you have total recall at any given moment. This past week, 2 great Torah leaders were summoned to receive their heavenly reward. They both achieved the distinction, v'talmudo biyado, true masters of their Torah. On Erev Shabbos, the great halachic giant, Reb David Feinstein, passed away. I didn't have the privilege of ever meeting or interacting with Rabbi Feinstein, but I knew his reputation as an exceptional gadol whose clear piskei halacha were sought after from all circles in the Orthodox community. He was known by a simple title. He was known as the Rosh Yeshiva, and he carried on the legacy of his revered father, Reb Moshe Feinstein, Zichrono Livracha. On Shabbos itself, across the Atlantic Ocean, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs passed away after what appeared to be a very short battle with his last bout of cancer. It wasn't even the 30 days that Rav Ashi was able to negotiate with the Malach HaMavis. On Saturday night, as the news spread around the world, someone in Eretz Yisrael sent me a picture that was on his cell phone. It captured the last time I had the pleasure of seeing Rabbi Sachs. It was in Yerushalayim, when we both were there to celebrate the 50th Yom Yerushalayim. On each occasion when I was blessed to see Rabbi Sachs, I felt it was a true bracha, for I knew I was in the presence of true greatness. The late 16th and early 17th century Talmudic commentator, the Maharsha, takes a totally different approach in explaining what Talmudo biyado really means. He suggests it's a reference to the literal meaning of in your hand, namely your scholarly writings that allow others to appreciate your insights. There is no one that I can think in the Orthodox community who has produced so many quality Torah writings in our generation as Rabbi Sachs did. He was blessed with so much talent. He was blessed with Torah Shebichsav and Torah Sheba'al Peh, of teaching Torah via the written word and teaching Torah via the oral word. His writing is elegant, so easy to read, while his talent as an orator, very few could compete. He would mesmerize the audiences, and his fame attracted large crowds thirsting to hear his Torah wherever he spoke. I am proud of the fact that I was the one who suggested and conceived of the idea that when he came to Los Angeles a number of years ago on behalf of Harkim Hillel Hebrew Academy, I told Rabbi Safran at the time, don't allow him to be just a simple scholar in residence. He should be the community scholar, and all the shuls should agree to come together, showing the appropriate kavod that he deserves. Anyone who was present will never forget that Shabbos morning in Beth Jacob. The aura was like magic for our community, raising the honor of Torah in our midst. But how do I assess, in just a short little presentation like a Drasha, the great contribution that Rabbi Sachs gave the world in his amazingly creative life? As I reviewed the Parsha of this week, I believe I found my answer. It all appeared to me when I came across a slight change of wording between 2 psukim. It happens when Avram instructs his trusted and devoted servant Eliezer to go back to Avram's birthplace to find a suitable wife for his son Yitzchak. Avram insists that Eliezer swear that he will do just as he's commanded, and he should never bring a wife from Benos Canaan, from the Canaanites. The Torah records in Choftes Pasuk Gimel, Va'ashpiacho ba'Hashem Elokei hashamayim ve'elokei ha'aretz, asher lo tikach isha livni mibnot ha'kenani, asher anochi yoshev b'kirbo. And I will adjure you by the Lord, Elokei hashamayim ve'elokei ha'aretz, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose midst I dwell. Avram clearly states to Eliezer that he must swear to the God of Shamayim va'aretz, to the God of both heaven and earth. But then, just 4 psukim later, Eliezer inquires of Avram, tell me, my master, what happens if I do not have success and I'm not able to convince any young lady that is appropriate for Yitzchak to journey back with me so that they should get married? Avram once again intones Hashem, and he responds and he tells Eliezer that he has nothing to worry about, for God will guide him. And here in Pasuk Zayin, he says, Hashem Elokei Hashamayim, asher lekochani mi beis avi ume'eretz moladati. Hashem, the God of heavens, who took me from the house of my father and from the land of my birth. What happened to Elokei ha'aretz? How suddenly does Avram not agree to mention Elokei hashamayim ve'elokei ha'aretz, both? Why suddenly is it only mentioned Elokei ha'aretz? Rashi, quoting the Medrash Rabbah and the Sifri, says this change of phrase wasn't by accident. Rather, it was brilliantly intended by Avram to allude to a transformation that occurred in the world of his time. He was teaching Eliezer a lesson, that when Avram began his journey from his father's house, the world didn't understand God as a God in their lives. God was relegated to somewhere else in the heavens. Now, however, reality had changed. He informs Eliezer that God is no longer relegated to the heavens, but God is a God that each human being can feel in their own life. God is also in the presence of the here and the now. Avram explains that he taught the world that God is on the earth and in their lives. Or in the beautiful words of Rashi, he says, Achshav hu Elokei hashamayim ve'elokei ha'aretz. Now he is God of heavens and God of earth. Shehir glativ befi habriot, for I have familiarized him in the mouth of the people. When one thinks of the great contribution of Rabbi Sachs, it is this very accomplishment that Avraham did so many centuries ago. He taught the world that God is a living reality in every aspect of our lives, and so did Rabbi Sachs. He demonstrated in his brilliant way to both Jew and non-Jew alike. Think about it. Who else could have spoken to world leaders and to religious leaders, to the Dalai Lama, to the Archbishop of Canterbury, just to mention a few, and he could dialogue with them and demonstrate to them that Hashem is not just Elokei Hashamayim, but he's Elokei Ha'aretz, that Judaism has what to say about every part of our lives, from the boardroom to the bedroom and everything in between. There was no area of concern that Rabbi Sachs wasn't willing to address, and he did it so brilliantly as a wordsmith that is so rare to find. I vividly recall on one of his visits to LA, he asked for a meeting of a group of rabbis. I was present. At that meeting, he challenged all the rabbis in the room to realize that the Torah has what to say on every facet of life, and it is our job as Manhigei Yisrael, as leaders, to infuse the secular world that we live in with the insights of Torah. He was the model for all of us. But in truth, there was only one, Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. At his funeral this past Sunday, only 30 people were present because of the rules in England due to COVID-19. But the eulogies delivered were broadcast all over the world. During a most befitting eulogy given by his dear friend, Dayan Binstock of the London Besdin, who knew Rabbi Sacks already as a young man. They were together, learning together. Rabbi Dayan Binstock concluded by telling a story that occurred to him when Rabbi Sacks spoke as the inducting rabbi when Rabbi Binstock became the Rav of St. John's Wood Synagogue in London. Rabbi Sacks said, and I quote Dayan Binstock, "When I die," Rabbi Sacks says, "I do not want to be remembered as the man who was chief rabbi of the British Commonwealth. I do not want to be remembered as the man who wrote many books. What I want to be remembered is the man who gave sweets to children in shul." Dayan Binstock concluded his eulogy by saying, "In a sense, we are all children of Rabbi Sacks, for Rabbi Sacks gave sweets that made Torah so precious and so palatable for all of us to appreciate. Indeed, Rabbi Sacks, you are our Rebbe, and you will live on as we study your works for years and years to come, as we are zoche and merit to listen to your voice on the tapes that captured your brilliant oratory. May your neshama be a source of blessing for all of us. Amen."
Ve